What did you do sexually with your first partner that you only realized wasn't normal when you got into a new relationship? Not my first GF. But one girl I dated for a bit was a real semen demon. Had a cum fetish to the point where she'd just get me to jerk off a load into her mouth sporadically for no reason aside from wanting a snack. Edit, if only my stock portfolio went up as much as my karma today. The first dude I had sex with I ended up dating for 7 years. So most of my sexual habits were built around him and his habits. He absolutely loved having his gonads squeezed hard. Like, wrap my hand around the whole sack and squeeze as hard as I possibly could. He was so into it and we never really talked about it. So I just assumed it was something all dudes liked. The first time I had sex with my current partner, I tried to impress him with this sexy move and he very quickly informed me that it is in fact not something all dudes liked. Sorry, babe. I used to put my girlfriend's legs like all the way behind her. I had no idea how flexible that girl was until I was yelled at for trying with a different girl. Having to gag and try not to vomit while going down on her or even smelling my hand after fingering her. I thought every girl just smelled and tasted that bad, so I manned up and did the deed for her. After we broke up and I started hooking up with other girls, I realized that while it's not my favorite smell and taste in the world, pussy is just fine. My first girlfriend just tasted awful. My first girlfriend gave BJS by blowing on my pen 15. We were both very young. I was just happy someone was touching it. Edit, so it turns out a lot of people have had this happen to them, eh? The back door was always an option. Now it's a place that exists but I never go there. First GF would give me a BJ. But when I would start to come, things changed quite drastically. Once it started, she would remove her mouth completely, I distinctly remember the pop sound each time, and then start to jack me off like she was trying to set the speed record with a shake weight. So I hated BJS. When I told her it was great except for the end, she just told me that's how BJS were and not everyone likes them. Not true. Edit. Couple points. I added the word come above for clarity. My issue isn't the fact that I wasn't allowed to come in her mouth. What she did with her hand physically hurt. My orgasm felt more like the bell at the beginning of a carnival game that caused her to spring into hyperaction. That's the issue. I've had girls that didn't like cum in their mouth and they give great BJS because they communicate. Also understand some guys like this. That's cool if it's your thing. Don't mean to offend. Glad I could provide some laughs. Edit 2. My top comment is about my hilarious sexual inexperience. Awesome. My first girlfriend just laid there while I did the work. My second GF was a Hellcat. It was like going from a bike to fully loaded Benz. The girl who was my first sex partner was 2 years older than me and significantly more experienced. Like way more experienced. She basically treated her vag and anus as interchangeable and sex usually involved both. Switching back and forth frequently, sketchy hygiene I later learned. But typically liked me to slip it into her as when I was going to ejaculate because she liked how that felt. With later partners I found out not all girls have a butthole you can just switch to when you're about to pop off. Some girls scream and punch you in the face, which it turns out does not stop an ejaculation. First time I ever had sex. Believe it or not, we did the FCK me in the ears cause I love Jesus thing. Turns out no other girl I've ever had sex with since would even think about it. In college, I hooked up with one girl during her time of the month. I was new to the whole hooking up perspective of college life as a freshman. She was totally cool about it and told me that I could just put it in her ass. I took how cool she was with it as somehow being the norm with other hookups. I was dead wrong. The next girl that I hooked up was also during her time of the month, so I asked her about our options there and ended up naked. By myself. And very embarrassed. Edit. My top comment is about butt stuff. Nice. First one blew me in a time and anywhere I asked. And swallowed. Not realistic. She was also batshit crazy. She made me wear a condom while giving me a handy. I guess it made sense because it meant cum didn't go flying everywhere. However, it made things really awkward with the next girl I was with, and I pulled out a condom when she was playing with me. She was like, "Whoa, I'm not ready to have sex with you yet." And then I explained and she informed me that was a bit weird. Try and put the gonads in. My first GF was a BDSM enthusiast. I just thought that this was the normal way of having sex and was surprised to know that my second GF didn't have her own sex toolkit. He asked me to use my teeth during a BJ. He wanted me to scrape my teeth up his big dick. Said he liked the thrill of not knowing if I might bite it. Had to unlearn that trick fast. The first girl I had sex with would only let me have sex with her when she was on top. Sure, fine, I can do that, 6 is 6, right? Well, I'd start ducking her and she'd just hug me as tight as she could for the full duration. Not moving, just hugging me. Then when I came, wouldn't let me remove my pen 15. She wanted to cuddle with my pen 15 in her, while still grasped onto me. My friends and I call her the grappler. My first girlfriend taught me how to finger her. She would make me start out with one and then add a second finger. She kept telling me to do it faster and harder. It got to the point that I'm literally cranking my fist back and punching her in pussy. Needless to say, my next girlfriend was super pissed when I didn't understand that she didn't like to be hunt punched. Having enough. My first girlfriend would sometimes just say I had enough and we would stop. I just assumed this meant she had an orgasm. When I orgasmed, it wasn't lasting much longer. My next sexual partner never had enough. I stayed friends with my first girlfriend who came out years later. She told me that she wanted to be straight and would have sex and basically not enjoy it, hoping that one time she would start to enjoy herself. She loved me eating her out because she wouldn't look down and pretend I was a woman, and it explained why she didn't suck big dick. Edit. Repeated words. Lack of affection involved. No kissing or cuddling. And he would often leave right after we were done. Over time I expected it and accepted it as normal. It's taken a long time to change that with my new boyfriend, who has taught me it actually is normal to desire romantic physical affection along with sex. Penis size. My first boyfriend had a micropenis. Imagine my surprise when I found that wasn't normal, pre-internet days. Folks. Not that there is anything wrong with that. He certainly knew how to use himself. It was just a surprise. I literally don't know how to explain this in a clean manner. My ex, first person I had slept with, had a kink where she liked me to basically duck her while she was asleep because she liked waking up with a big dick inside her. I thought it was hot, but soon found out it was new but normal. My first girlfriend was completely against oral, giving or receiving. I just chalked it up to another exaggerated thing in porn. He loved rim jobs. Just loved my tongue all up in there. So I obliged. Wasn't till the next guy literally yelped and cringed away from me that I realized not all dudes have the same preferences in bed. A girl I dated for a bit was really into spitting. Like she wanted me to spit in her mouth and eye her face during sex. It's always the normal looking ones who surprise you. The first guy I had sex with had a massive pen 15. Like the girth of a soda can and probably 10 inches long. Not kidding. Sex was incredibly painful. I hated every second of it. I was so inexperienced though that I didn't realize that wasn't normal at all. I thought the issue was with me. I mentioned it to my doctor that sex was really painful and she did an exam. Didn't find anything wrong and said it was either psychological or it would just take time for my vag to adjust to sex. She didn't think to ask, "Does your boyfriend have a giant monster big dick?" So after I stopped seeing him, I didn't have sex for a long time because I was so scared of it. Then I dated a guy who had an average sized pen 15. And I realized that not all penises were the size of my forearm and nothing was wrong with me. Yay for average penises. I was waiting until marriage, and about 2 years into the relationship we decided that I'd give him a handy since he was watching porn and I'd rather help him out myself since I had never watched it and felt weird at the time. We were in the car. And while we're making out I decide it's a good time. Instead of what I know now a handy actually is. I rotated it in a circle kind of like a joystick. He didn't correct me and he finished in less than a minute. That mother ducker never corrected me after another 2 years of being together. But my next boyfriend literally laughed in my face the first time we hooked up. As to vaginal to as to mouth. I was a virgin and very ignorant on anything related to sex. She was the polar opposite. 5 years older than me. I was 19. She was 24. She had me duck her in the ears on our first sexual encounter because she prefers anal and she doesn't have to use lube because it gets her pussy so wet. She wasn't wrong. I didn't think too much of it, but over the past 5 years I've heard a lot that contradicts this being anything close to normal. I am engaged to her and marrying her early next year. Edit. Holy duck. I posted this and didn't think anything of it because the post was already pretty old. I got super busy and didn't check my account for a few days, and Jesus. Now my highest rated comment, by an exponential amount, is about my first time having sex with my fiancé. Figures. Though. My first sexual partner as an adult would force me to watch subservient Asian pornography and act like that all the time. He'd even play it on the screen in my room and lock me in overnight so I'd learn faster. Yeah, turns out that wasn't normal. First guy I gave a BJ to was way too aggressive with the hand on the back of my head. To the point where he literally wouldn't let me pull back to breathe. Asshole. Edit. Since I'm done saying this over and over, yes. I'm aware some women like that. That's great. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. And he didn't have my consent to do it. So he's still a ducking asshole for doing it. I gave a couple of BJs to a high school boyfriend and received a few investigative licks on occasion in return. Several guys later. Turns out mutual oral still isn't common. But boy is it great. My first serious boyfriend, high school sweetheart. Who I lost my virginity to. We would like baby bird food to one another. As in, I would chew up an Oreo until it was mushy and then spit it into his mouth. We would pee together at parties. As in, I would sit on the toilet to pee and he would aim his big dig and pee through my legs. We would make weird sexual bets. As in, he would jerk off on my chest, spread the cum around and let it dry. Then write his name over it in magic marker. At school the next day, he'd ask me to lift up my shirt and prove I hadn't showered. If it was still there, I would get a gift, usually a season of the Golden Girls on DVD. We were up. Yeah. Interesting kids. Edit. Christ on a bike. My first comment to ever hit over 1k points, and it's about me spitting chewed up cookies into a Ukrainian kid's mouth when I was 17. Edit. Thank you for the Reddit silver. Sexy stranger. USA. USA. This is so ducking embarrassing, but what the hell. I was the only one of my friends who didn't lose their virginity at age 16. I felt some serious pressure to lose it so that I could discuss things like big digs and gonads, etc. with my experienced friends. I'd read lots of extremely vanilla romance type novels by this time, and was pretty sure I'd know what to do with my first partner based on this. Ducking lol. The night comes. I'm extremely wasted and ready to hand my V card to the dude I was seeing. Note that I was a ridiculously innocent 19-year-old virgin. And the dude was this smoking hot 25-year-old West Point cadet. It hurt so ducking much. But I was trying to roll with it and be not only super sexy, but also I was trying to summon my best fake holy shit this is so ducking awesome that I'm in ecstasy type of vibe. Literally no pleasure on my part because I was way drunk, terrified, and super nervous. I thought it was totally normal and a sure turn on for the guy to scratch his back really super hard and say things like God yes and don't stop. I also moaned loudly and faked a really unbelievable orgasm. WTF. He was fully aware that I was a virgin, so this really makes me cringe now. Postscript to my teenage son. If you're reading this, I warned you. Dude. Peruse my history at your own risk. Edit. Peruse. Not me, but my first sexual partner, and I was hers. She figured out she could queef on demand and would do it. I didn't have the heart to tell her it wasn't remotely sexy. I cringe at the thoughts of cringe she must feel when she looks back at it.